This is where we are in the Amida Sutra. Amida Sutra is a scripture, a type of sacred scripture that's very important in the Western, the Pure Land method. Pure Land is one of the schools of Buddhism. There are many schools. Pure Land, Zen is another school, very well-known Zen for meditation. And you have Tibetan for esoteric, with a lot of mantra recitation. So that's another school. And then Pure Land is another school. So we here are studying Pure Land Buddhism. So this sutra here is one of the three most important in Pure Land Buddhism. The sutras often start out as "thus I have heard." So when it says "I," here refers to Ananda, a disciple of the Buddha who was well known for hearing the Dhamma. An analogy is that you have a pitcher of water and you pull from a pitcher full of water to an empty pitcher, you pull it in, there's no single drop left behind. So Ananda's memory was excellent, more than even excellent. He was able to remember all the Buddha's words. And so when they had the first council, after the Buddha passed away, he recited to the 500 sages or arhats who would validate Ananda's, and then from there they would have, do oral transmission of the sutras until about 500 or 600 years later. That was when they started to write down the scriptures. So that's why we have the scriptures today. So it started, usually the Buddha's scriptures start out, "Thus I have heard," to certify that this is what I have heard from my own ears. It was not from my imagination, Ananda's imagination. So we talked about, at this time, the Buddha was in Savatthi. Savatthi was a city in India, a place in India, at the Jeta Grove of Anathapindika. Anathapindika was a famous patron of the Buddha at the time. He built a monastery at the Jeta Grove, a very beautiful garden for the Buddha and his disciples, all the monks, to practice. It was not too far away from the city, but it was not too close to be disturbed. So not too far for the conveniences, but not too close to be disturbed by the noises in the city. So at that time, there was 1,250 great bhikkhus or monks, great great disciples of the Buddha who came to listen to the Buddhas, and they were all arhats. Arhats, again, they're like the top level of the sages, of the saints, if you will. We don't have an equivalent word in English, but something equivalent would be a saint or a sage. And they were well known in the assembly. And the first one that the sutra mentioned was Elder Sariputra. And that's what we are going to be talking today. In fact, we have been talking about Venerable Sariputra because of his qualities, because now he was like the chief disciple of the Buddha, known for his wisdom. So we have been learning about his qualities and see how we can incorporate in our lives. So the focus of these lectures or talks is to learn about the principle, but also to incorporate these principles in our lives, because if we learn something but we don't know how to incorporate, then it will be a waste of time. And so we want to make the investment. Time is very valuable. So we want to make that investment. And when we make that investment, we want a return on our investment, right? If there's no return, then it's not a good investment. So we've been putting a lot of focus on doing research to bring forth the most applicable, useful concepts. And not only that, but how to apply those concepts to improve our lives, the quality of our lives, and to improve our own happiness, but also to help other people around us, because we ourselves being happy is not as meaningful as we make everybody around us happy, right? So the whole focus of learning Buddhism is to improve the quality of our lives, but also to improve the qualities of other people's lives around us the best we can. So let me quickly recapitulate what we discussed last time. So summarize what we discussed last time. So this way, today's talk will have continuity. We talked about an important aspect of human development. You can say that a necessary turning point in reaching spiritual liberation, 解脱, 解脱, and that is discontentment. Discontentment, 厌离 or 将结. So discontentment here is not a psychological state, but more of a spiritual state. When you have this spiritual discontentment, you don't hate the world out of jealousy, despise, or any other unskillful emotion, 不善法, 不听法. But rather, spiritual discontentment is the result of seeing reality more clearly, 看破, nhìn thấu. So in order to achieve your spiritual goal, you have to move beyond this world, because this world can never ever provide a true state of suffering. 无苦的境界, 感觉无苦. So discontentment is a motivational factor to say, I am not happy with what I have, not because I hate what I have, but because I know that there is something more. For example, when you were a little kid, you like your toys, right? You like your maybe blankets or whatever little toys that you like. But as you grow older now, you are an adult now, you don't see the meaning of the toys anymore. You don't hate the toys, but you see that the toys can no longer provide you a meaningful way of life, right? So the same thing when you are more spiritually mature, you will see that this world is not up to par to what we are asking for. So that's what discontentment is. It's not to hate the world, but we realize that this world cannot provide what we are looking for. We are looking for spiritual liberation, a state of no suffering whatsoever. So this world is incapable of providing spiritual liberation from the suffering of old age, illness, and death. Right? There's nothing in this world that can overcome old age, suffering, and death. No matter how much money you accumulate, it can never prevent you from growing old. In fact, you have a lot of money and you can buy a lot of vitamins, you can buy a very expensive cream, but the skin will still wrinkle, right? So that's why this world cannot provide you happiness, true happiness. And it's not that reliable. And nothing can prevent you from being ill, being sick. And definitely nothing can prevent you from dying. So therefore, the suffering of old age, illness, and death, there is no solution in this world. So that's why we feel discontented to go beyond this world to achieve the state of no suffering. And last time we also elaborated that the state of no suffering is a state of emotional positivity, right? No suffering means happiness. So spiritual discontentment is a state of emotional positivity. It's not a sad state. Discontentment doesn't mean sad, but discontentment means that you are not satisfied with what you have because you have a higher aspiration, right? You following me? So it's not a negative thing. That was the motivation that Sariputra, Venerable Sariputra, Salifu, Salaifak, and his best friends Magalana, Mujianlen, Mukingling, for why they were not attracted to the fun at the festival that they were at. So last time we talked, they even spent extra money to buy tickets for the following days to enjoy the festival. But during the festival, after the second day, they realized that the fun at the festival was no longer there. It was not as fun as they had imagined. And so later on, they went on to study with several teachers in search of a state of deathlessness, a state of no suffering. So having heard a stanza from Venerable Asachi, Venerable Sariputra, or Sariputra at the time, became a stream entrant, Tukuo, Sewa. A stream entrant was the first stage in sainthood. So Arahat was the fourth level. Stream entrant is the first level, Sewa, Tukuo. Shortly afterwards, he came to the presence of the Buddha, having heard the teachings from Asaji, he came to the Buddha, and 14 days later, he achieved Arahatship, meaning that he completely eradicated the cycle of life and death. He is no longer subjected to the cycle of life and death because he has attained Arahatship. Even though he had achieved Arahatship, he never forgot to be grateful to Venerable Asaji for leading him to the truth, nor did he show any dissatisfaction to his past teacher who had misled him. So that was a very admirable quality of him, that he always showed respect and gratitude to those who show him the way. His lasting sense of gratitude was something that was very notable of Venerable Sariputra. And that was where we ended last time. Okay, so this time, today's talk, I want to focus more on the next quality of Sariputra, and that is his friendliness, his friendship, how he showed his friendship to those around him. And that was so that's a very notable characteristics of Venerable Sariputra. So today we will talk about friendship, and so true friends help one another, sometimes with a teaching, sometimes with encouraging words, and sometimes with straightforwardness. Being a good friend doesn't mean that you always have to be, nice, but you want to help the other person grow. That is what being a good friend is. And in order to help us to grow, sometimes our friends would have to be critical of us. They should not let us slide, get away too easily. But if we are going off course in the wrong direction, they should help to pull us back, right? So that's what a good friend is. Not to be nice and say, okay, keep doing it, you're okay, and keep doing that, and you keep falling. So that's not a good friend. That may be a nice friend, but it's not a good friend. It's not a true friend. So we will see that Sariputra was a true friend because he was not only nice to those who should be nice to, but he was also critical, and we will see later how he was able to help another friend to achieve Arahatship because of his being critical. In Anguttara Nikaya, Sutra number 167, Venerable Moggallana, his best friends, not only best friend, but childhood friends and also spiritual friend, one day he shared with Sariputra about the progress, spiritual progress, and he said that there are 4 ways of progress. So this is Moggallana, Mu Jianren, Mu Qingling, his spiritual friend, essentially share a teaching with Sariputra. So there are 4 ways of progress. Difficult progress was sluggish direct knowledge. 迟缓通达的苦行道, 口hành đạo và chậm thông đạt. Okay. The second is difficult progress with swift direct knowledge. This is 快速通达的苦行道, 口hành đạo, nhanh chóng thông đạt, nhanh thông đạt. Then the other is easy progress with sluggish direct knowledge. So 迟缓通达的乐行道, lạc hành đạo và chậm thông đạt. And then the last way is easy progress with swift direct knowledge. So 快速通达的乐行道, lạc hành đạo, nhanh chóng thông đạt. The reason I had to specify in Chinese is because the English version of the sutra, they don't have a language of its own compared to Chinese, because Chinese has incorporated Buddhism for over thousands of years. So Buddhism has become a language of its own, whereas the Western scholars, they only study Buddhism for the last 200 or 300 years. And there is no common language for Buddhism in English. And so for us to not be misled, when I read and do research on using English text, I have to go back to the Chinese and sometimes the Vietnamese just to make sure that the words are understood properly. Because, difficult progress, okay, progress, but when you read in Chinese, it's about cultivation. And here, sluggish direct knowledge. What is sluggish direct knowledge? And that is Tongda is to understand, in other words, wisdom, 智慧, 智慧. And so that's why sometimes I have to go back and forth between English, Chinese, and Vietnamese just to make sure that my interpretation, my understanding is correct. So anyways, there are 4 ways of progress. So Moggallana was curious as to which type his friend Sariputra's progress to Arahatship. So you can see that his difficult and easy, sluggish and swift or fast. So the definition for difficult, easy, sluggish, and swift are as follow. So Moggallana, he says that by which of these types do you belong to? He was asking. To which Venerable Sariputra replied, by that of those 4 ways of progress, brother, which is easy and swift direct knowledge. So when I compare to the Chinese version and the Pali, because there is a direct translation, it doesn't quite say that, but this is the Pali version, and this is the Chinese translation side by side. But here, essentially, it's saying that because of his cultivation, that his mind is no longer is egoistic, doesn't have egoistic attachment. Moggallana did not explain in the sutra of these definitions of difficult, easy, swift, and sluggish, but according to the author here, easy progress is when you can easily control your mental afflictions, 烦恼, and false and wandering thought, 烦恼及妄想, phiền não và vọng tưởng, to allow you to enter meditative absorption, 入禅定, nhập thiền định. Otherwise, it is called difficult progress, where there's a lot of efforts required. So easy means you can easily absorb a meditation, and difficult means you have to put in a lot of effort to achieve a meditative absorption, 禅定, thiền định. And having controlled defilements, 烦恼, 及妄想, phiền não và vọng tưởng, the manifestation of insights, according to the author here, of insight here is 智慧, trí tuệ, a wisdom, occurs quickly. Then it is called swift knowledge, right? So knowledge, when you can absorb in meditation and you can have manifestation of insight, or when you have wisdom, that's called swift, very fast. Otherwise, it's called slow. Sluggish is slow. So in answering Moggallana's question, according to the commentary here, Sariputra indicated his first 3 paths belonged to the 3rd category, which is 3rd category up here, easy progress with sluggish knowledge. But I couldn't find this in the Chinese and the Pali version. What I could find was that he was saying that because of his cultivation, that he no longer had egoistic attachment, 我执, ngã chấp. Therefore, he was able to achieve spiritual liberation. So anyways, going with the author's definition of easy and difficult, I want to expand on these definitions a little more to help us understand, to make it more relatable, because this is not helping us how to incorporate in our lives. And it won't do you much justice if I were to skip over this. So I want to dive in a little bit to gain more insight into what is this here and how it's going to help us, benefit us. So the text here indicates that what makes a practice easy or difficult is the preparation. So that's what it's saying here. It's essentially, to you, it's easy. It's because you have preparation. That's what it means. You have preparation. Just give an example. If you have ever done house painting or renovation, you will understand this example. Painting is easy, but the preparation takes a lot of effort, right? If you don't do the preparations and jump right into painting the walls of your room, you will find that painting the walls, it won't be too easy. And in fact, you can easily make messes and bump into the obstructions because you have not cleared the room and you start painting right away. So painting a room requires preparation if you want to do it quickly. For example, you may have to clear the furniture, all the chairs, the bed from the room. You may have to put down the drop cloth so that paint won't drip on the floor and make a mess. Or you may have to put on the tape on the molding so that you can paint without putting fresh paint on the molding. So having done the preparation, you can just dip your roller into the paint bucket and then start rolling. And so it's very easy when you have done the preparation. And depending on the size of the room, like a normal room size, 8 by 10, maybe within 30 minutes, you can easily finish rolling, like painting all the walls. But without preparations, if you just start painting the wall, the paint may drip on the floor with fresh paint, and now you have to clean it up. Otherwise, it gets dried up, and it'll leave a big mess. Or you bump into furniture, or you have to move furniture around to make room to get into the corner to paint the last portion of the walls. So every time you encounter an obstruction, it delays your painting, and you cannot focus on it because you have to keep moving things around. Because you are distracted to deal with the obstructions, you cannot focus on your painting, so your efficiency and your quality suffer. Additionally, your frustration builds up along the way, right? You get upset probably, and as a result, your job is not done to your satisfaction because it takes a long time, and that it leaves a mess, and now you have paint over on your furniture. Now you have a bigger mess than before you started. So similarly, you shouldn't jump right into meditation immediately after a hectic activity like driving here without the proper preparations to calm the body and mind. We should definitely not be rushing here, honking our horns to the slow traffic ahead of us while yelling out the window, "Move out of my way, slowpoke. I'm late to my Buddhist meditation class." That's not going to help when you get here. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you get the point, right? Preparation is important. So good preparation before starting meditation is that you allow yourself enough time to calm the body and mind. You come here a little bit early, then you can rest. You can start to calm the mind. And so when you sit in meditation, it will be more effective. You won't be wasting your time trying to overcome your mental activities. That's the difficult progress. Whereas you sit here and you are ready to go, and so when we sit in meditation, you are more at ease. Your body and mind becomes more at ease. And you can try this at home. If you have a shrine room or a meditation room at home or a quiet room at home, walking into your meditation room, don't sit down right away to meditate. You may want to adjust the flowers on the Buddha's altar or the table. Observe and remove any withered, dry flowers. Dust off the Buddha statue and clean any mess that might be in the room. And perhaps open the window to let the cool air, fresh air come in, or maybe close the window if it's too noisy outside. And adjust the lighting so that it's neither too bright nor too dark. And of course, while doing all these things, you maintain mindfulness of what you're doing. So in this way, you are effectively calming down the body and the mind, right? Focusing the mind. So you're doing that. You're already on the way when you do that already, right? So when you finally get to sit down to meditate, your body and mind are now ready to go at ease. They are now at ease. They are more receptive to meditation. But that's not always the case. It's not that always easy. But what happens when you've done all that? You've done all the preparation, but you still cannot concentrate. You cannot shè xin or nhíp tâm. You cannot concentrate the mind. So what happens when you when you try to do all that, but you still cannot concentrate the mind, there's still a lot of mental affliction popping up. So what do? There can be many reasons, and I have come up with two. Maybe listening to this, you may come up with some other reason as well, but I'll share with you two reasons why we cannot concentrate easily. One reason is that you may need to give more time for your spiritual energy to catch up. Just because you are making the body to sit down, you're sitting on the body, it doesn't mean that the mind is ready to calm down. It may still be racing 100 miles an hour because of all your recent mental activities, like driving here, right? Honking your horn. So that's first reason is you gotta allow your some time to meditate. Don't just rush and expect the mind to be able to concentrate right away. It doesn't work that way, right? When you drive 100 miles an hour down the street and you want to stop immediately, that's gonna cause some damage to your car. So you want to slow down. And if you are to make a turn, if you slow down immediately, what's gonna happen? The car can flip, right? So when we try to force ourselves to sit and meditate, you will find out that you have more mental afflictions, more fanao, fear now, because you're forcing yourself. And a part of you is not willing to give in. So you are now fighting. Instead of sitting still, you are fighting mentally, right? So that takes me to the second reason, is that even if the mind wants to calm down, but it doesn't mean that the subconscious mind is ready to follow. So here's the this is your conscious mind. Conscious mind is something that you can see, like you can see your thought, like you can see your thought that I want to meditate. You can see that. But a big portion of yourself is the unconscious mind, like the big bottom piece of this iceberg. This is more powerful, that says, I don't want to meditate. So you're taking this little piece and you try to overcome this big piece. It's not an easy fight to win. So the conscious mind wants to meditate. It is extremely small and weak compared to this subconscious mind that does not want to meditate, which is big and powerful. So you're taking something that's small to fight against something that's big, then of course you're not going to win easily, right? You want to do something, but your mind, your subconscious mind is saying, I don't want to do this. You cannot force me. I don't want to do this. You may, for example, or you may find studying Buddhism difficult, but hanging out with friends, playing games is so easy. And that is because playing games, hanging out is this subconscious mind that wants to do that. And you are forcing yourself to not play games, not to hang out with friends, to study Buddhism. It's not going to be easy. It's a tug of war. And the subconscious mind is going to win because it's much bigger and more powerful. So then, what can one do to tame the resistance of the conscious mind? So your subconscious mind down here is saying, I don't want to meditate. So what do you do to control it? It's resisting. So I don't want to meditate. So how do you control it? How do you make it go along so that you don't have to fight? But when you sit down, you are meditating and not trying to fight. You following me? So how do you do that? This is going to require more than 10 or 15 minutes before meditation to calm down the mind. This will require something more fundamental because we're talking about a change that is very big. And so your practice, your progress has to be very fundamental, the base, right? The base has to be strong. What this means is that one will have to redirect one's mind to mental positivity and meditation in one's daily life. In other words, you have to incorporate this in your life and not just to do once in a while and expect things to change immediately. So how does one reorient or redirect one's life? Well, you can start by observing the precepts properly and purely. 持戒清净, 止giới thanh tịnh. Right? So you can start with precepts, observing the precepts. For example, like the 5 precepts or the 10 precepts. 5 precepts are no killing, no stealing, no lying, no sexual misconduct, and no intoxication. So by observing the 5 precepts, we are redirecting our minds, our life, essentially our subconsciousness, in a skillful direction, 停, shan, right? So by observing the precepts, we are changing directions of our life because we're committing to it. We don't kill, we don't hurt other people, we don't lie, right? We don't steal, we don't take things not given to us, and we don't intoxicate ourselves by drinking alcohol or drugs that would dilute your mind. And so by doing those things, by staying true to those precepts, you are redirecting your subconsciousness, your life, in the good, skillful direction. You following me, right? So that's one thing that we can do, because there is no point in trying to practice meditation in a meditation hall while outside of it, one feels oneself with negative emotions. It doesn't work if you sit in meditation, but then once you leave the meditation hall, you get angry, you get upset, you have all kinds of desires, unskillful desires. So you are working against yourself, and you are going back to the wrong direction. So when we sit in meditation, that's just one practice. But the true practice, this big iceberg here at the bottom, is how we live our lives outside of meditation. You following me? So therefore, it is very important that we have awareness of why we behave in such a way outside of meditation, right? Outside of being here. Once we leave here today, we should be reminded that we want to redirect our lives towards skillfulness, 停法, 善法, right? So the more that we spend time doing something, the more that the subconscious will in that direction. So that's how one tames the resistance of one's subconsciousness. That's how you control it. So it's not by forcing that the subconsciousness will submit, will give in, but through awareness and constant discipline. Little by little, you change little by little. You don't force yourself, not like once a month that you sit in meditation and expect a miracle to happen and you become a saint. It doesn't work that way. But it's daily practice, daily mindfulness, daily awareness that you start to slowly change your subconsciousness. So this big piece of the iceberg right here will change as well. So this is more an efficient and effective way to prepare for meditation. It will make meditation easier, right? It'll be easy progress. So those are the 2 reasons that I could come up with. One is rushing to meditation. That's not going to help because you're not allowing the body and the mind to sync up. So that's not going to help. 2 is the resistance of the consciousness being too strong. So by observing the precepts, we are directing our lives in a skillful direction, 停, 善. So can you think of any other reasons that perhaps why it is so difficult to sit meditation? I'm sure if you reflect on it, you might come up with other reasons. So assignment for today's is when you go home, maybe think about why you're having so difficult in sitting meditation or being happy. And then you will realize, if you think about it enough, you will find the obstructions to the path to your happiness. So what is in the way between you and your happiness, you and sitting meditation? And when you think more about it, you'll find out. But if not, maybe we can talk about it next time when we meet. So going back to the text here, Moggallana shared with Sariputra the 4 scenarios, right? These 4 scenarios here of spiritual progress, spiritual development. So in such ways, the 2 friends exchange information about their experience and their understanding of the Dharma. What made Moggallana and Sariputra good friends was that they share what they learned and they help one another. And so there was no jealousy between them. If you remember, Moggallana attained Arahatship only 7 days. 7 days. But while Sariputra in 14 days, Moggallana Mukingling was not jealous of Sariputra, when he was recognized as the foremost this disciple of the Buddha. So instead, they often collaborated to strengthen the Sangha, Sengtuan, Tangdong, such as an incident recorded in the scriptures here. So there was a schism in the Sangha, that was an incident brought about by Devadatta, Tiputato Devadatta. The Buddha rejected Devadatta's wrong views. So there was a schism, and the Buddha says that his deeds, Devadatta's deeds and words, should no longer be regarded as connected with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So he caused a conflict in the Sangha. So as a result, Devadatta took with him 500 young monks, leaving the Sangha to establish his own group. So at an earlier time, Venerable Sariputra had praised Devadatta of his supernatural powers, Shantong, Tangtong, perhaps too quickly, because the Buddha later asked him to eat his own words. The Buddha essentially is saying that, no, so you will now speak truthfully also, Sariputra, when you make this proclamation about Devadatta. So the Buddha said that you have to correct your view now because you wrongfully essentially praised Devadatta. So after receiving the formal approval of the Sangha, Venerable Sariputra, together with many monks, went to Rajagadha, which was another place in India at the time, and made declaration about Devadatta. So that's this part here. So after Devadatta formally split the Sangha, right, he took some monks with him by declaring that he would conduct Sangha acts separately. So he didn't want anything to do with the Buddha. He wanted to be his own leader of the group. So he left to the Vulture's Peak, Lingjiu Shan, Núi Lần Thú, with 500 monks who, through ignorance, had become his followers. So to win them back, the Buddha sent Sariputra and Moggallana to Vulture's Peak. And while Devadatta was resting, the two chief disciples preached to the monks. Those who attained stream entry, the first level of sainthood or sagehood, went back to the Buddha. Those who did not kept following Devadatta. So that was another time where Venerable Sariputra and Moggallana worked together to restore order in the Sangha, Sengtuan Tangdong, when a group of monks were misbehaving. And this group was led by Asaji, which is not the same Venerable Asaji who spoke the Buddhist verse to Sariputra. This group of monks continued to misbehave even after repeated admonitions. So finally, Venerable Sariputra and Moggallana was sent to pronounce the penalty of excommunication on these monks. So they were not to be part of the Sangha, the Buddha's Sangha anymore. So that was some examples how the two best friends were collaborating to make the Sangha better. Venerable Sariputra's devotion to his friend was fully reciprocated. He cared for them, and in return, they care for him. So that's what friends are for, right? You care for one another. You help one another to improve. When they are weak, you help to strengthen them. And when they are conceit, you help to curb their egoism. So we being good friends, are supposed to remind each other and not allow each other to move away towards the wrong side. And so we are told of two occasions when Sariputra was ill, he was sick, and Moggallana attended to him and brought him medicine. So they took care of one another. So good friends are supposed to take care of one another. But this friendship was not personal. There was nothing exclusive about Venerable Sariputra's friendships. According to the commentary to the Mahagosinga Sutta, there was a bond of mutual affection between him and Elder Ananda, A-Na-Luật Tôn. So it was not, he was not being just exclusive with Mahagalana, but he also had good friendship with Venerable Ananda as well. However, Sariputra's affection was not one of worldly attachment, but a love for Ananda's virtue. He admired Ananda. Ananda admired him because they show virtues, good qualities. So it was not a personal attachment where in a group you are a good friend to somebody because they can bring benefits to you. So that's more politics than true friendship. The Buddha once asked the Venerable Ananda, "Do you too approve of Sariputra?" And Ananda replied, "Who, O Lord, would not approve of Sariputra unless he were childish, corrupt, stupid, or of perverted mind?" And then he went on to describe of Sariputra that Sariputra was of great wisdom, of broad, bright, quick, penetrative wisdom is Venerable Sariputra, of few wants and contented, inclined to seclusion, not fond of company, energetic, eloquent, willing to listen, and an exhorter who censors what is evil. You can see that Sariputra care about his friends care about him back. So that's what I was trying to illustrate here. Now, with a few minutes left, we're going to end in about 10 minutes. I'm trying to wrap this up. I want to I want to show you one more excerpt about how Sariputra was helping his friend by being critical to his friend. Sariputra here was a true friend in the fullest sense of the word. And sometimes that requires one to speak straightforwardly and critically. Because he understood well to bring out the best. Because sometimes when you want to be critical to somebody because you know that they can do it, and that by being critical to them, that you can help them to bring out the best. And so that means that you have to understand your friend very well in order to be critical. Because you don't want to be critical to any stranger because they may end up hating you, right? So you want to be critical to somebody who you know well, and they will respond positively to it. So a true friend requires understanding of one another. So in this way, he was able to help Venerable Anuruddha. A-Na-Luật Tôn, A-Na-Luật Tôn. He was known for most in heavenly vision. He was able to see the heaven. A-Na-Luật Tôn, 天眼第一, A-Na-Luật Tôn, 天眼đệ nhất. But before he achieved Arahat, he became the fourth sage, he was still confused in his practice. Venerable Anuruddha said to Venerable Sariputra, "Friend Sariputra," right here he said, "with the divine eye that is purified, transcending human ken, I can see the thousandfold world system. 千世界, 天thế giới, 1,000 thế giới, 1,000 world system. Firm is my energy, unremitting. My mindfulness is alert and unconfused. The body is tranquil and unperturbed. The mind is concentrated and one-pointed." So he knew of what he had achieved. But then he said, "Yet my mind is not free from cankers, not free from clinging." So that he even though with all these achievements, yet he still cannot be liberated from the cycle of life and death. So divine eye is one of the 5 or 6 natural powers that where with the ability to see objects from afar at a great distance, as clearly as seeing things in the palm of your hand. So the object in your hand you can see clearly, just as you can see an object like thousands of miles away. So that's divine eye, heavenly eye. So the divine eye can also see through obstructions like walls. There's nothing that can obstruct the eyes. So what it's saying here, essentially, we can learn from that supernatural powers do not guarantee enlightenment or Arahatship, because there is still egoistic attachment. That's why Venerable Anuruddha was not able to overcome his own afflictions, 烦恼, 烦恼, even though he was able to sit in meditation, very calm. So Venerable Anuruddha, A-Na-Luật Tôn, A-Na-Luật Tôn, said that he was able to achieve meditative concentration and one-pointedness, 一心不乱, nhất tâm bất loạn. But yet he still could not free himself from mental afflictions and attachment, 妄想与执着, vọng tưởng và chấp trước. So one can use meditation to temporarily calm the body and mind by suppressing one's mental activities, afflictions, and egoistic attachment, 妄想与执着, vọng tưởng và chấp trước. But the bonds to the samsara, the cycle of life and death, are still there. So this was puzzling Venerable Anuruddha, so he went to Sariputra for help. Sariputra said, "Friend Anuruddha, that you think thus of your divine eye, this is conceit in you. That you think thus of your firm energy, your alert mindfulness, your unperturbed body, and your concentrated mind, this is restlessness in you. You cannot calm the mind, you keep thinking about it. A lot of mental activities. That you think of your mind not being free from cankers, 烦恼, 烦恼. This is worrying in you. It will be good indeed if Venerable Anuruddha, abandoning these three states of mind, paying no attention to them, will direct the mind to the deathless element, a deathless state, 无生, 不生, 不生不灭, 无生无灭. Essentially, he's saying that your divine eye is not really you. Your energy is not really you, right? Your mindfulness is not really you. There's no you. This body here we call I is conditional because it's made of so many elements. For example, the house is made of many elements. There's no house because can you call the window the house? No, right? The window is not the house. The door is not the house. But what is the house? You cannot say that it doesn't exist. It's there, but it's conditional. 缘起, 缘起. It's all conditions. So this body here, there is no I, because it's made of your attitude, your physical body, your arms, your tissues, all that. Can you call your hand you? No, you cannot, right? And so there is no you, but Anuruddha was mistaken that there was somebody that had achieved meditation, had achieved energy. He said that the you now is conditional. You don't have a fixed and changing self. And so you should abandon the wrong thinking and direct to the deathless elements. And he also said that, thinking that you are good is conceit, right? This is conceit, meaning 傲慢, ngã mạn. You leads to arrogance. But then you worry, then he came to realization that he had achieved Arahatship, Arahan, to become a full sage. So that he was worried, he was concerned. So conceit and worrying are egoistic. They are not good to be trapped in. So this conversation here between Venerable Sariputra and Venerable Anuruddha is reminding us to avoid two extremes. One is to avoid becoming attached to our spiritual accomplishments. We can sit in meditation and we can feel great about it, but we shall not be attached to our accomplishments. They say, hey, look at me, I can sit very still, I am very happy. Well, that is a form of attachment, egoistic attachment, 我执, ngã chấp. So because thinking that this I, this self is real and it has accomplished, I have accomplished meditation, right? So that will be a restriction, will be limitation. We will now get to enlightenment. If we fall into this trap, then we will stop making progress because I have achieved meditation. There is nothing else for me to learn. I'm not going to listen to anybody else. And then that will be the beginning of retrogression, 推进, 退转, right? You fall back. Venerable Anuruddha could not break through his own psychological conditionings because he was not aware of the subtlety of the ego, 我执, bản ngã, 自我, bản ngã. So that's the first one, is to think about our accomplishment and become attached to our accomplishment. The second to avoid is to worry that we have not achieved spiritually. Oh, I cannot sit in meditations. I'm not concentrated enough. You start to feel bad. That is an extreme that we should avoid. One is to feel good about ourselves. That we should avoid. The other one is to feel bad about ourselves. We should avoid that as too, right? So you can see here at the beginning, Anuruddha was very conceit about himself, but then he also worried about that he had not achieved Arahatship, Arahant. So Sariputra was telling him, stop it. Don't fall into the two extremes. It's good to be concerned in order to avoid slacking off or laziness or sliding back, 退转, 推进. But worrying too much can inhibit our spiritual progress because there is still egoistic attachment, 我执, ngã chấp. There is still the thinking that the fixed and unchanging self is slacking off and not making progress. So we fall into the trap by being conceit and having low self-esteem. So we should avoid the two extremes. When you have low self-esteem, you are comparing yourself to something which in absolute reality doesn't exist. Who would criticize you? If you were to sit for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour, what does it matter? But if you continue to make progress, who cares if people say, why can you can only sit for 5 minutes? I can sit for 10 minutes. It doesn't make sense for us to compare. Does it make sense to you? Right? Feeling bad about ourselves doesn't help. Feeling good leading to arrogance, 傲慢, ngã mạn, is not good either, right? Because the reality is it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. There's no fixed, unchanging self. So whether it's conceit or low self-esteem, it's all egoistic attachment, 我执, ngã chấp. So as a result, the mind is not free from mental afflictions and clinging. So what should one do? Sariputra tells Venerable Anuruddha to abandon those states of mind and pay no attention to them. So don't pay, in other words, forget that you have, that you can sit in meditation, and also forget that you cannot sit in meditation. So forget about those two, but direct your mind to progress. Just continue to do what you need to do and direct your mind towards progress and avoid these two extremes. So as a result, Venerable Anuruddha, living then alone, right? He said, living then alone, secluded, heedful, ardent, awareness, mindfulness, determined mind, before long reach in this very life, understanding and experiencing it by himself, that highest goal of the holy life, for the sake of those noble sons, go forth entirely from home into homelessness. Then he knew, exhausted is rebirth, no more cycle of life and death. Lived is the holy life, the work is done, nothing further remains after this. Then Venerable Anuruddha became one of the Arahats. So exhausted is the rebirth, meaning no more rebirth in the cycle of life and death, no more suffering of old age, illness, and death. Live the holy life, for example, like following the threefold study, precepts, meditation, and wisdom, 戒定慧三学, tam học giới định tuệ, including the eightfold path, 八正道, 八真道. So we live a life wholly by following the Buddha's teachings. Work is done, meaning that one has fulfilled one's responsibility without creating fresh karma to keep one in the cycle of life and death. Nothing, and then here, nothing further remains after this, because the karmic momentum that pushes the wheel of the cycle of life and death has stopped. So therefore, nothing remains. Thus, Venerable Anuruddha became an Arahat. So he is now free from all karmic forces to keep him within the cycle of life and death. So achieving enlightenment, achieving the state of deathlessness, is to live a life that leads to state of no suffering, right? It's not to avoid life, but to live a life properly, to fulfill your responsibility, like it says here, and to live a holy life, right? Living a holy life and fulfill your responsibility, it will lead to enlightenment. So one ends the cycle of life and death by not abandoning life, but by living a proper and pure life to eliminate the karmic force, 业力, 业力. In other words, Anuruddha has abandoned all the psychological conditionings and become an Arahat, so he is free from karmic force, 业力, 业力. He has willpower, 愿力, willing力. So free to take rebirth in anywhere that he wants. So that's the beauty of spiritual liberation. Now I know I've gone over a little bit. If I can spend 5 more minutes to discuss what was it that Venerable Anuruddha had achieved, had broken through to achieve Arahatship, become an Arahat, Alahan. So will be the last part of today's lecture. So these are the things that we need to break through in order to achieve enlightenment. 1 is negative emotions. 2 is rational thinking. The third is time sense, 受者相陀牙灯. So those are the 3 things that we need to break through in order to achieve enlightenment. First is negative emotions and psychological conditionings. Psychological conditionings create bias and prejudice, resulting in unconscious bias. They limit our view of reality and distort reality. We cannot see things clearly. Like when we're upset, we see everybody is against us, right? We see a very negative view of the world, right? Everybody is sad. Or when we are happy, we see everybody's happy. So it distorts reality. Reality is neither happy nor sad, but reality, right? I mean, that's life. So but when we have negative emotion, it really hurts us because it damages our view, it damages who we are, what we think about ourselves, and therefore it distorts reality. We don't see reality clearly. Negative emotions such as anger, jealousy, fear, hate, guilt, shame, regret, make one to have poor self-conception, prevent one from entering jhana meditation. When you are unhappy, you cannot sit in meditation because meditation is a state of mental positivity. You're happy, right? When you sit in meditation, you're happy, but you cannot be happy if you are sad. So therefore, when we have negative emotions, we have low self-esteem, we have hatred, we have jealousy, anger in us, we can never enter meditation. Does it make sense? So therefore, we should avoid negative emotions. Jhana meditation is a state of emotional positivity. Therefore, negative emotions cannot exist there. We can never enter meditation if we have negative emotions. And that's why we can never get to enlightenment if we have negative emotions. So I think this is easy to understand. So we can move on to the second one. The second is rational thinking. This may be easy to understand, but very difficult to accept. Because it is the rational mind that we survive, we think, we plan. It is the rational mind that has created fire and the wheel. It is the rational mind that splits atom and landed man on the moon. It is through clear thinking that humans have created laws and society. So eliminating the rational mind is asking the mind to destroy itself. This is something that our mind cannot accept. And that's why it is so difficult for us to accept it, because we are asking the mind to destroy itself. The mind say, no, no way, I'm not going to do that. And we need the mind. We cannot live in this world without critical, rational thinking. Like when you have a business, you have to calculate. You have to make sure you don't have losses, right? That's rational thinking. You want to make sure you have supply chain that supports your business and that you have enough supplies, that the cost is low. So that's rational mind. But to say, Buddhism is saying, get rid of that rational mind. How is it acceptable? So the mind cannot accept its own destruction. But Buddhism says the rational mind must go. Just like the negative emotions, we can understand that we need to get rid of negative emotions, right? But Buddhism is saying get rid of the rational mind as well. How is that acceptable? The reason that we need to get rid of the rational mind is because the rational mind is limited and it is not transcendental. The rational mind is attached to shape, form, and time. For example, the mind can perceive that a small object can fit in a large object, just like the tables and chairs here can fit inside a big building like this. We can accept that, right? But we cannot understand how a mountain can fit inside a mustard seed. A small, tiny mustard seed, how can a big mountain fit inside it? The mind cannot comprehend, cannot register, cannot understand, cannot even accept how that is reality, right? So here I'm just trying to say that the mind has limitation. The rational mind has limitation. That's why we have to get rid of it. So the mind is used to time running forward, and it's having difficulty to process the idea that time can run backwards. In this way, the rational mind is limited and is duality. It cannot come duality, two different duality, then it cannot avoid differentiation and conflict. Because duality, you're comparing. This is me, this is you, this is big, this is small. That's duality. But the mind sees that. It might understand, okay, yeah, a big object can encapsulate a small object. There will always be a conflict if you have duality, because the rational mind saying this is loss, this is profit, this is good, this is bad. But if you have duality, then you have conflict. So that's why the Buddha is saying we need to get rid of the rational mind. So lastly, the third things that we have to get rid of is time sense, 受者相, right? 头牙tướng. There are many types of time. We can say in general that there are two types of time. One is the mechanical or clock time, like the clock time that is very uniform, continuous. It's divided into hours, minutes, and seconds. So that's mechanical time. The second is called organic time, right? The mechanical time, a clock time, and the other one is organic time, which is our experience. It can expand and contract, whereas the clock time cannot expand and contract. Every second is exactly every second. The first second is the same as the next second. You cannot expand, you cannot contract, but our experience can expand and contract based on the intensity of the experience. If you sit in meditation, you can see that time has stopped, almost time has stopped. Like a minute is very fast, or even half an hour is very fast, right? But if you watch the clock, it's the same, it's 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes, right? For example, the song that once has affected us profoundly when we were 18 years old, maybe we were in love or something, that song that we listened to, can have the same effect when we are hearing it again, even though the song may be decades old. Right? So that experience is not based on time. Does that make sense? Right? So one is clock time, that minute after minute is gone, right? The minute's gone. But the experience that we have is not gone, and it's maybe the same. It's the same even though after many, many years later. or a person can hurt us deeply many years ago, can still have the same effect when we hear of that person or the situation is brought up again. Even after many years, we can still feel hurt, right? So that experience is independent of time. Does it make sense? You following me? All right, okay. So what this means is that our experience is beyond time. So then what is the big deal with time dependence? Why do we need to break through time? Why is the Buddha saying we need to break through time? What's so important about it? When we try to break through time, it is the mechanical time that we are trying to break through. So I wanted you to understand that. We talk about mechanical time. We are all slaves. Most of us are slaves of time. We work and live according to time. For example, when we say it's time to eat, we may not be very hungry, but it's now 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or 1 o'clock, whatever the case may be, it must be time to eat. Or when we say it's time to sleep, we may not be sleepy, but it's time to sleep. Or it's time to go to work because it's time to work. And so our lives are based on time. We are driven by time. We don't have creativity. We are enslaved to time. We work when it's time to work. When we meditate when it's time to meditate. We may not want to chant Amitabha, but because it's time to chant Amitabha, therefore we will go and chant Amitabha. Right? So we are not being creative. We don't want to do it, but because it's time to chant Amitabha, okay, well, it's, Saturday, there's Gongxiu, Gongdu, there's the gathering, okay, it's time for me to go. Or I have made a schedule, okay, at night before I go to sleep, I need to chant Amitabha. Okay, fine, it's time to chant Amitabha. So because of that we are enslaved to time. So in this way, our lives are geared towards time and controlled by time. And as a result, we destroy the self-regulating characteristics of our being. Our lives become slaves of time. You following me? Okay. So at least, in this way, we feel secure because it's predictable. Because when we say, okay, let's meet at 1 o'clock, you know that it's predictable that people will gather and come at 1 o'clock to meet. Right? At least it's predictable and we feel secure when we have time. Or when we say, I'm saving money or I'm doing business, I have 5 years to pay back. At least it's controllable. Right? It's secure, as opposed to somebody coming in and say, I need you to pay right away. No, I have 5 years to pay it off. So time gives us security, and that's why we like it. But the problem is that what gives us a sense of security can also give us a sense of insecurity because we don't trust ourselves. So some people plan their lives on time. They plan for tomorrow, they plan for next day, and so forth, until the very last day of their retirement. And in this way, our lives become mechanical. 形式上真很thức, we tu hành chân hình thức, and controlled by mechanical time. Right? We chant, we meditate because it's time to meditate. Not because we want to, but because it's time to meditate. It's time to chant Amitabha, to 念佛, right? And so our life experiences don't develop and flow from the depth of eternal now. People plan and organize their whole lives according to time. Tomorrow, I will be doing such and such. Next day at 11 o'clock, I will be doing something such and such. And next year, I'll be doing such and such. So they plan out. And so this way, our lives are controlled. We're not being creative. But it is not our fault individually because we are all pressured collectively to live by time. Everybody lives by time. And so we are forced to live by time. So it's not our fault individually. We are being pressured to live this way. But this is not the way of living an active life in an enlightened, spontaneous life. It will not lead us to enlightenment if we live mechanically. 真很thức, 形式上. Right? We just live mechanically. Oh, I do this because it's time to do this. And that's why we have to break through time's sense in order to achieve enlightenment. Okay. So we have come to an end of today's talk, and I won't be able to discuss all these fully, but I will do that next time. So what I have presented to you are the problems of negative emotions, the problem of rational thinking, and the problem of time sense. Next week, when we meet, I will present to you the solutions, right? So I want you to come back to hear the solutions. How can we overcome the conditions of negative emotions, the duality of rational thinking, and time sense? 受者相陀牙tướng. Okay, so let's summarize and then we will conclude. Today we discussed 4 types of progress that Moggallana explained to Sariputra: the difficult progress, the easy progress with the sluggish or the swift direct knowledge. So it's easy progress not because no effort required, because of preparation. You want to make easy progress with meditation, then you should observe precepts, 持戒, 止giới, so that this way your whole life is heading in one direction. So when you're already heading one direction and you sit down, you want to look in that direction, you are already looking at that direction, right? So it makes it easy when you have preparation. That means incorporating it in our lives. Then we talked about how Sariputra helped Venerable Anuruddha to gain Arahatship, to forever end the cycle of life and death by living the holy life, completing one's duties and responsibility, and not creating fresh karma of the samsara, the cycle of life and death. We further explained how one must break through the 3 types of conditionings in order to attain enlightenment. So one must break through emotional negativity, psychological conditionings, and the rational mind and time sense. All right, so I have presented to you the problems. Next week, when we meet, I will present to you the solutions.